Seeing red in Denver. Fed up. Teachers walk out. Some students left school with them. Other kids did what kids do without a teacher in the room. What happened today is national news, but let's talk about what's next. Today's chaos could actually pay off for the district. It could also drain a valuable resource from schools in the suburbs. With journalists banned, student reporters get a turn. And they did a great job. We'll make you smarter in a minute about the tricky issue that's at the heart of this strike. And I'll have a word for the hidden heroes on this tumultuous day. But other things happened in our corner of the world. A wild turn in the investigation of a city-shaking explosion. Veterans are coming to Colorado for an experimental treatment. And we found the icy cold side of our hot housing market. That's next. Day one of the Denver teachers' strike. A predictable mix of chaos, calm, and mind-numbing boredom for students thrown out of their routines with their teachers in the streets. If you only watched national media coverage of the Denver teachers' strike, you would think every school saw Lord of the Flies stuff like they did at East High.
After that, nobody had any idea what was happening.
Contrast that with what DPS wants you to see. They allowed a single news camera to go into Skinner Middle School and capture placid scenes of pure scholarly bliss. The photojournalist allowed inside told a colleague that they were told where to go and felt like they were seeing rehearsed scenes.
What question does she ask?
The truth is probably a lot more boring than both of those. Students inside DPS took photos of kids being warehoused in large groups in auditoriums, playing board games in classrooms, bored out of their minds, but safely contained by a school district that insisted it would keep the school buildings open even without the teachers who make those buildings schools. So this is all going to happen again tomorrow. Teachers will be back on the picket lines in the morning. The district is not going to release attendance numbers from today until tomorrow. As the week plays out, it'll be interesting to see whether attendance drops, parents hold kids at home to avoid either the chaos or the boredom. And if that happens, that would help the district because fewer students to supervise would ease the strain on the few district office staff and subs who are in the buildings. Now, if the opposite happens, if parents who held kids back today decide, oh, we'll send them tomorrow, that really could put the squeeze on the district. So district administrators and the teachers union resume their bargaining tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. We'll be watching to see if DPS comes even closer to meeting the teachers' demands. If the district doesn't, it would not be surprising to see teachers walk out of negotiations as they did over the weekend. Although that's a pretty bold bet that the public is with them on this. Let's take a minute now and get smarter about the issue that is at the heart of the strike. As our Chris Vanderveen explains, it's not just about money.
In Colorado's largest city sits the state's largest district, Denver Public Schools, and its 90,000 students. Monday, the union representing 3,800 of the district's teachers went on strike. Why? It's a bit complicated, but in simple terms, it's not all about money. More than a decade ago, the district started awarding bonuses to teachers. The union signed on then, but now believes it makes teacher pay too uncertain. Imagine, their members say, you never really knowing what you're going to make one year to the next. The district wants to keep the core idea of bonuses intact, believing they incentivize good teachers to stay in schools that serve poorer areas. One thing is clear, Denver Public Schools can't seem to keep teachers like other districts do. The latest data from the state shows a 20% teacher turnover rate in DPS. At the same time, the state's 10 largest districts saw a turnover rate of less than 15%. So maybe something is amiss in DPS, a district facing its first teacher strike in more than 2 decades.
If you permit a personal thought on day one of the strike, I'm relieved that it doesn't look like substitute teachers and district office staff are going to end up being harassed for crossing the picket lines. That could have been ugly. Instead, today, we saw teachers actually thanking the substitutes who were walking in to teach their classes. And it appears the DPS students were largely respectful to the subs and district staff employees who were in the classrooms and the auditoriums and the gyms. You have to remember, too, those DPS central office workers, they were ordered to cross the picket lines. They did not have a choice. And undoubtedly on their minds today is the fact that the district's offering to cut a good number of their jobs to move money into teacher pay. But they were out there today trying to make the best of a tough situation. So DPS is in desperate need of substitute teachers this week. Now, some subs are former teachers, and they've told me they will not cross a picket line, even for a paycheck. There is also a general shortage of subs statewide. Our Steve Steger looks at whether the strike is going to put suburban school districts in a bind.
Each and every district we talked with today says their eyes are certainly on Denver. With a good economy right now, substitute teachers are in short supply. And Denver is offering subs who fill in for striking teachers double the money that they would typically pay. Unions in other districts have asked their administrations to increase pay to keep their subs away from DPS, but we couldn't find a district who'd made that kind of commitment today. Jeffco schools canceled professional development classes for teachers this week so they can stay in their own classrooms. Jeffco, Cherry Creek, and Adams 12 all tell us they saw no impact of the strike today, but are keeping an eye on things as the week goes on. But smaller districts are obviously more concerned. Districts like Sheridan Schools, which already has a tough time finding subs as some teachers are getting professional development out of state this week. The State Board of Education did say they've seen more applications for sub licenses than usual, 834 in the last 3 weeks. That's up about 500 from the same time a year before.
So 3 weeks ago, DPS was looking at recruiting furloughed federal workers to sub. Things changed when the government reopened, obviously. DPS told us 400 subs showed up today out of their pool of 1,200, along with 1,400 employees from that central office that you were talking about, Kyle. A lot of those employees could potentially be on the chopping block with the cuts that the district is proposing.
I feel like the suburban sub situation is a lot like the lesson plan situation in DPS. They don't really know what's going to happen until they see how many people do they need, how many kids do they have in class. It's very fluid this week.
It is, and it's hard to tell from the numbers that we're getting from the state, too, whether those are folks who applied to sub in DPS. You'd think so, because that's where the demand is right now.
Yeah.
But just seeing those 800-plus sub applications in the last few weeks, you don't know if those are going to that district. So.
Day by day.
Yep.
You keep checking with the suburbs, I'll check with the city.
Sounds good.
Like a little beat system. I
Yeah.
like that. All right. Thank you, Steve. Republican State Senator Jerry Sonnenberg realized the only way that we would talk about his long shot proposal to divert lottery money from state parks to schools is if he dropped it today during the strike. So well played, Senator.
We have, from my perspective, enough outhouses and soccer fields, and I think it's time to allow the voters of Colorado to decide what is their priority, more recreation areas or better schools.
Sonnenberg, who represents Northeast Colorado, wants voters to decide in 2020 whether to take the 50% of lottery money that goes to parks and move it into education. Seems pretty unlikely that the Democrats who control the entire state legislature will allow that to get on the ballot. A man was arrested today accused of intentionally causing the enormous explosion at an apartment complex in Denver last August. Denver fire investigators say that guy, Todd Perkins, was a handyman at the complex on Santa Fe and 4th. They said he'd recently been let go from that job. They believe that he opened up gas lines on the property, poured around some gasoline, and set it on fire. 9 people were hurt, Perkins included. He's facing charges of attempted first-degree murder. So normally we will send politics guy Marshall Zellinger out to find the political story of the day. Today he came back with a handful. So there was an arrest in the case of the Capitol burglar, and while Marshall was there talking with state troopers about security, he saw kids setting up shop begging for some lemonade stand leniency. So here's Marshall.
The first floor doors at the Capitol are magnetic, and you can't get in without a badge. And the old school metal doors, well, they're just for show.
Those doors are, if you actually look at them, they're bolted open, so they are no longer ones that close and secure.
State troopers have changed their policies a bit since someone broke into the Capitol 2 weekends ago, breaking furniture and bronze busts. This guy, Elias Dominguez, was arrested, believed to be this guy, the burglar who was caught on one of a few security cameras inside. Captain Dan Haley tells me the break-in was not the result of a state trooper screwing up.
We have changed some procedures in camera monitoring, in checking doors, in continuing to do those things that we have been doing. We are just making sure that there are no gaps that would allow this to occur again.
Just below one of those security cameras, legislative business was happening today like normal, but in the form of a mini-mart. Kids at the Capitol showing off you don't need a license to set up a tabletop business for origami, scrunchies, or good old lemonade.
We need to legislate it because you have people out there who are shutting down kids' businesses, and I just think that that's insane.
The bill to leave kids' businesses alone was inspired by the lemonade stand shut down in Stapleton last year because the kids were competing with a permitted event.
These kids who are here today for the Kids Mart are not only learning how to run a business, organizational skills, money management skills, and the earlier we can teach our kids that, I think it makes them more, more productive adults.
Teachers were outside, kids were inside. Was anybody in school today? Lemonade stands win the day, Kyle. Watch out, Stapleton. The kids went from the Capitol hallway to the committee room, testified, and got that bill past the first step of the legislature.
Stapleton, like they're going to have lemonade stands like Broadway has pot shops. Like every block, there's going to be 3 of them, you know?
The kids are going to be competing with each other now and trying to shut each other down.
Yeah, hope you're thirsty. All right, thank you, Marshall. Next, the veterans who are coming to Colorado for a new way to treat pain and PTSD. And we will remember a police officer who served in this city at a time that a lot of people didn't want him in the uniform.
Monday. And while it is Monday and it was cold and windy, the week is actually looking a little better than we originally thought. We took the snow out for Tuesday and for Thursday, but did put it in for next weekend. Our high today only 34. Tomorrow we kick off the warming trend that'll get us close to 60 midweek. 31 at the airport this hour, wind chill of 22 due to the wind, which is picking up and kind of shifting. We have a progressive weather pattern, but the subtropical jet becoming more active will push a lot of that cold Arctic air to the north of us. So the mountains are going to see snow over the next 48 hours, but Denver stays dry, windy at times. Low headed for the Midwest, a California storm heading in. In the meantime, we're sitting right in between these systems, which means very little moisture for our state, at least in the short term, and another clear, cold night coming up. So we'll call for a low of 16 with partly cloudy skies. Tomorrow, temperatures much warmer, high 52. We go close to 60 Wednesday, Thursday, and then bring in that snow for the upcoming weekend. It will be a cold 3-day period with a chance for snow, wind, and temperatures below 0 overnight, Kyle.
Thank you, Kathy. Ketamine is an old medication. It's mainly used for anesthesia. There's evidence that suggests it might also help with chronic pain or post-traumatic stress. So while the FDA has not yet approved it for those uses, there are veterans who aren't waiting.
Yeah, just a lot of bad stuff I saw over there. I'm Brad Edwards, and I'm a Marine. I was in the Marine Corps for 4 years. Did 1 tour in Iraq. Before that, I had plans to be a police officer. When I got back from Iraq, I lost all desire to do that. It made me depressed. It made me want to numb myself with, drugs and alcohol. And also made me, suicidal. But my dad the whole time was always emailing me every day, like, trying to, pleading with me to get help. One of the emails he sent me was about Clairthana and ketamine.
Ketamine is a medication that we've historically used in the emergency department a great deal. It was a very, very commonly used medication. My name's Carl Bonnet. I've been practicing emergency medicine for a little over 16 years.
I trust him because I know deep down that he really wants to help veterans. He understands what we're going through.
I did 20 years in the military, and for me the veteran suicide rate is a huge issue.
All right, you ready? Ready. All right, I will see you guys in an hour. The psychedelic part is a huge part of the, of my therapy. I'll float, I'll feel like I'm, leaning forward and things like that. So it's not just what I see, it's actually a lot of physical stuff too. I'm almost home. I try and think about suicidal thoughts, and they're just not there anymore.
Doing okay?
Mm-hmm.
Metro area has a few of those ketamine clinics already. Keep in mind, though, those treatments for chronic pain and post-traumatic stress, they usually are not covered by insurance.
They had a tough job, and they did it in an almost impossible era.
These guys weathered through it. They persevered, and they kept on going.
And I am proud to say, on day 1 of the Denver teachers' strike, this city's sign game is strong. That's next.
Producer Aaron almost walked out with your feedback tonight that you could have met her right here. It would have been nice. Diversity in the Denver Police Department is not a new concept. African-American officers have served here since the late 1800s, reflected post-Civil War migration to our community. As part of our Black Heritage coverage, our Byron Reed shows us how the department's museum is teaching those who follow in their footsteps.
I thought we had in here with a group.
Looking at the past can tell us so much about who we are.
Basically, they were looking for people that were reliable in the community that would go out and enforce the laws.
And for Sergeant Dean Christopherson of the Denver Police Museum, preserving history has taught him a lesson about the department's 150 years of integration.
And when you go back and you delve into history and you see the stories of some of these gentlemen and some of the ladies that were pioneers that came up through and blazed a path, it's fascinating to see some of those stories.
Like Ulysses H. Baker.
He formed one of the first auto theft departments.
And John Bill.
He was our second black officer hired in 1881. Post-Civil War, a lot of emancipated slaves came up to the Great West.
But it's information about the city's first black officer that has Christopherson scratching his head.
And he, in fact, winds up getting kicked in the jaw and seriously injured.
And asking the question, who is Isaac Brown?
Isaac Brown was elected in April 15th of 1880. When it came time for him to be nominated to the position of police officer to reflect the ever-growing black community in Denver, he was almost a shoo-in.
Brown served for about 10 years, but there's not much more known about him.
There were fires at City Hall around 1900, various floods from Cherry Creek, which wiped out records, and a lot of them were just discarded because, again, you can't keep everything forever.
It's a quest that has Christopherson asking the public for help to answer questions about those who protected and served.
These guys weathered through it. They persevered and they kept on going.
For Next, I'm Byron Reed.
DPD is looking for more information about Officer Brown, if you think that somebody in your family might have that. And they also are quite proud of the fact that they feel like law enforcement was pretty ahead of the curve when it came to integration and diversity, and they think the DPD helped lead the charge on that. It's a sign that there were a slew of great signs on day one of the Denver teacher strike. So here we've got the banana and the monkey. They made an appearance at a bargaining session and came back. That meme is everywhere. Adele also made an appearance. I love the kid who put his math teacher up and said, "Pay this man." But there's my favorite. If Baker Mayfield was superintendent, we would not be striking. We would be winning. I don't know if that teacher is talking to DPS or to John Elway. Student journalists stepped up today when Denver Public Schools would not allow news cameras to see inside most school buildings. And a special thank you to Joe McComb and the other student journalists at Thomas Jefferson High School. They were really thoughtful about this. We had conversations about what kind of images would show what was going on, but still would be respectful to their classmates, people who did want to be in pictures, didn't want to be in pictures, about portraying accurately what was going on inside their school building. Joe and the staff there, the TJ student media, went above and beyond, even did a school census. They counted classroom by classroom how many kids showed up at the beginning of the day and how many were left after lunch. According to the student journalists at Thomas Jefferson, more than half the kids who showed up in the morning were gone by the afternoon. We have found a short-term rental that just screams Colorado. It might be a little chilly, though. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today was one person's attempt to turn a pile of snow to a pile of cash. I assume that this is a tongue-in-cheek Airbnb rental and they're actually not offering an igloo for $50 a night. Quaint ice cottage for weekend getaway is how they suggest. Hike in, hike out, $50 a night? What's the most Colorado thing you saw today? Email next@9news.com or get our attention with the hashtag HeyNext. Bunch of people are mad that I congratulated Denver teachers for being civil to the substitute teachers who came in to teach their classes today. Cheryl says, stop calling them substitutes. They are scabs. They'd walk across their own mothers to take the job of another. Pete, it's nice that you highlighted the teachers not harassing people crossing the picket line. They don't understand how labor disputes work. Pete and Cheryl, why don't we let them do it their way, okay? And then everybody could just kind of handle their own business. Speaking of our business, we had one of these greater than signs in our story about the teachers, and it should have been a less than sign. That's why teachers are important. We'll see you next time.